Kingdom Hearts has a whopping 41 super bosses in the series, but what is a super boss, you may be asking? Basically, a super boss is a highly challenging boss battle fought outside of the main story that really pushes the player to their limits. Kingdom Hearts is absolutely known for its challenging and difficult boss fights, but my goal today is to beat every single one of them in under 3 hours. Guys, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. I do a lot of gaming content with a lot of it focusing on Kingdom Hearts. This ranges from gameplay challenges like this one to in-depth lore and story related videos. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future content here on the channel. So as I was saying earlier, Kingdom Hearts has a lot of super bosses, 41 of them to be exact, and I'm only giving myself 3 hours to try and beat them all. I'm not a speedrunner by any means, and I'm sure there are a lot of factual ways to handle some of these fights, as I'm sure many of you will make me aware of in the comments. However, I do consider myself pretty decent at Kingdom Hearts from a gameplay challenge point of view, and I really wanted to push myself here with what I'm capable of. The rules are simple: beat every super boss under 3 hours with whatever the game gives me to utilize, even if that means cheesing some fights. The only real stipulation I'm giving myself is every boss here will be fought on the game's hardest respective difficulty, which is just critical mode for the most part, but Kingdom Hearts 1 didn't have that. Speaking of Kingdom Hearts 1, let's move over there to kick off this challenge. Kingdom Hearts 1 has about 5 super bosses. Whether or not you consider Rock Titan as one of them is up to you, but I did not for this challenge. Although if I'm being fair, he wouldn't have made much of a difference anyway. So the first boss we are actually starting off with will be Phantom, a boss located in Neverland. He's a very gimmicky fight where you have to hit him with magic corresponding to whatever color the orb under his cloak is. Red means fire, blue means blizzard, yellow means thunder, and white just means a normal physical hit. At the same time, the clock in the background is constantly ticking down, and when it reaches 0, one of your party members is straight up Control-Alt-Deleted from the game with no way of revival. To counteract this, you just need to cast Stop on the clock throughout the fight. It's all just magic based really, which means we need as much MP as possible. So we customize ourselves with just that along with some MP restoring items and head in to begin the fight. Right at the beginning, I let Peter Pan die so that any MP items that I gave Goofy are guaranteed to hit me. After that, it's a literal cycle for 8 minutes straight, where I go back and forth from damaging him with magic and keeping the clock stopped so that me and Goofy don't die. Does it really matter if Goofy dies? Yes it does, and he is a good boy and I love him. Also throughout the fight, I get a combo here and there because I have EXP0 equipped, which will allow me to get something called damage storage, making my magic stronger. But I'll explain that more in our next fight. After 8 minutes, Phantom finally goes down, so we fly over to Agrabah and get prepared for Kurtziza. Now, Kurtziza is an extremely difficult boss where he locks your magic, becomes invulnerable to magic himself, and it's just genuinely impossible to dodge sometimes. Unless you have that damage storage I mentioned. You see, as I was saying earlier, the EXP0 ability has a hidden property called damage storage, where after a combo finisher animation, your magic abilities become substantially stronger. And that doesn't just mean regular magic, it also means your summons as well. And, well, just look how powerful Mushu is with damage storage.
Gotcha!
I know I said Phantom Control-Alt-Deletes us, but Mushu straight up commits arson on the whole hard drive. Also, after these fights, I do the button inputs for the soft reset in the Kingdom Hearts games to allow myself to reload saves and switch games much faster. Our next fight, Unknown, is not that much more difficult. He's pretty strong and can be quite a challenge in a normal playthrough, but with the gravity loop that I learned from my level 1 runs of this game, he's taken down quite easily. He did break out of the loop towards the end, but we were able to recover and use Strike Rate to finish him off. Ice Titan is where things start to get a little more difficult. He shoots out a lot of icicles at Sora that you have to guard or parry back at him. At the same time, there's a whole bunch of other ice attacks coming in from time to time that can make this one a bit to manage. With enough time, however, we were able to take him down and moved on to our final KH1 boss, Sephiroth. I don't think it's much question how difficult Sephiroth can be, so this one I have to keep on my toes the whole time. So with a little patience and a lot of Ars Arcanum, we take down Sephiroth, leaving us at Kingdom Hearts 1 bosses complete in under 20 minutes. We're on pretty good pace here, but I have a lot of bosses left and it only gets more difficult from here, so I can't get too comfortable. We load up Kingdom Hearts 2, where Sephiroth is waiting for round 2. Unfortunately for him, it ends just about the same for him as the first round. As with Kingdom Hearts Combat Evolving, it seems Sephiroth didn't get the memo and was severely underleveled for Sora in this fight. So after that warm-up, we start off on the data battles, a collection of 13 fights from the main game all amped up tenfold to compete with late game Sora. We start in reverse order with Roxas, where we use a very easy and fun loop where we take his Keyblades and lock him in a cycle with limit form Ars Arcanums. This one is really fun, and I recommend you guys try it the next time you fight Roxas. After he's taken down, we move on to Larxene. The fight was pretty simple, although I did come close to dying at one point. Luckily, Drive Forms are amazing, and I was able to use Limit Form to heal up and finish out the fight. Before moving on to Marluxia, I make sure to have Fyraka customized, as it will come in very handy here as well as the rest of the data fights. In the fight, Marluxia puts a hit count on you based on your level, but being level 99 that doesn't provide much of an issue. We struggle a bit at the beginning to get some footing, but once we do, I'm able to trap him in a loop with fire where I perfectly time the fire to be going off just as he spawns in the middle, which causes him to get hit on the first few frames of him spawning in, giving us an opening. After that, we just needed to survive his DM and then pop into limit form to finish him off with a couple Ars Arcanums. Luxid is another gimmick fight where instead of a health bar, he has a time bar, and just as he says, the rules state, the first to run out of time is the loser. However, we have a time bar and a health bar, and he just has the time bar, so if you ask me, that's really just rigged towards the house's favor. you get it? Cause I said the house, and Luxid uses cards. Okay, jokes aside, the fight can be quite tricky, especially managing the cards that he can spawn in with him. In time, we're able to finish him off with ease, even getting a cool skip where we keep him stunned towards the end and defeat him so that he doesn't get his desperation move off. After the fight, we load ourselves and Goofy up with some ethers, as they were coming quite handy for Demyx. With Demyx's water clones minigame, he can have a large amount of clones to defeat in a very short time frame. The best way to handle this is with Wisdom Form Firaga. The fire will instantly kill them, while Wisdom Form Fire naturally circles around, allowing a larger area of coverage. This is why those ethers are so important, as even with just ethers on Sora, you'll eventually run out of magic and have no easy way of taking them down. After the clones, it's just normal Demyx. He's not too difficult, so we get to the end of the fight, handle a few more waves of water clones and finish him off. Our next fight, Axel, is where things actually take a turn. You see, Axel creates a fire arena where you constantly lose health very quickly. With this, you have very little room for error to take an attack as you're at low health for most of the fight. Now, I suck at this fight. I tried using a Bazaga strat that I'm admittedly bad at since Axel is weak to Blizzard magic. However, we end up taking about 4 deaths to this fight, marking our first deaths in the challenge. It definitely frustrates me and makes me more worried for what's to come, but I keep my head up and finish Axel so that we can move on. Syx was another bit of trouble. The fight started pretty strong where I was able to get a decent health chunk down with Duck Flare. However, I messed up the stagger later with Final Form and took an unfortunate death. Luckily, we were able to knock it out with some limit Rs combos on the second try. After those couple deaths, it was nice to have a little break with Zexion. We were able to take most of his health down with Final Form Firagas, which, in case you didn't know, don't add revenge value to the enemy as long as you're positioned properly. And then, we just finished it out with a Duck Flare for a really clean fight. Now, Lexaeus is basically a joke on any attempt. However, his power level did seem to intimidate my PS5 as the LAN cable just decided to randomly start going haywire for some apparent reason. But, hey, that's just the power of the legendary Super Nobody.
Don't mock me!
Vexen was another freebie really. Since he has a strong weakness to fire, we go back to the old reliable Final Form Firaga. We then use Duck Flare to survive the DM with ease and finish him off with even more fires. Sadly, the easy fights took a break because we ended up taking another death on Zaldin due to me not really understanding how to stun him with Duck Flare properly. However, Final Form Firaga being the overpowered god that it is, we were able to knock him out on the second try. With just 3 KH2 fights left, we move on to Xigbar, admittedly one of my weakest fights, so I was definitely nervous going into this one. We ended up taking 2 DNs from him, which is terrible for time save, but we did pull out the dub, and considering the circumstances, I was very happy to take it. Xemnas is the last data battle, and honestly one of the most intimidating. You see, he has 2 stages, and that if you die to the second one, you have to redo the first one. There isn't any retry like in later Kingdom Hearts games for this one. I honestly really struggled in the first phase, almost dying a few times even, but I was lucky enough to pull it together at the end and even skip the big cinematic reaction command at the end where you would typically climb up the skyscraper. Lucky for me, that's where that struggle ended, as we stayed really focused for phase 2 so that I wouldn't have to redo the first phase. With that, Xemnas was taken down and the data fights were completed, leaving just Lingering Will before we moved on to Birth by Sleep. Lingering Will is absolutely no joke. He's one of the toughest fights in the series and I had to keep on my toes or I could surely lose a lot of time. The fight starts pretty strong for us, but quickly turns south once he brings out his bike phase. For those that don't know, one of my least favorite things in gaming is a boss who spawns multiple enemies or objects to focus on at one time. My brain honestly just struggles to comprehend everything at once, and bike phase for Lingering Will involves him dashing around the arena with laser bots firing at you all at once. I knew if I got this attack it was GG's, as I'm almost never able to compete with this. So that unfortunately did end in a death, but things went much better on the second attempt. The second he opened up with his cannon attack, I knew we had a good pattern to work with here. All I had to do was just keep on my toes and not lose focus. We had a very close call where I wasn't paying attention to his RV and almost died, but quickly recovered in time. Eventually we made it to his DM phase, where the fight was basically GG's from here. All I had to do was a simple loop where I combo him but never push his revenge value past the limit. This forces him to cycle right back into another DM, which you can then repeat from there to finish off the fight. With Lingering Will taken down, Kingdom Hearts 2 is complete at just over an hour. We officially have 2 hours to complete this challenge, and although it may seem like a lot, the bosses in this series only get harder, especially when we reach Kingdom Hearts 3, so I really can't afford to get too comfortable just yet. So moving on to Birth by Sleep, I decided to use Vin for the 4 super bosses in this game. Although I think Aqua is the best playable character here, Vin has a few cheesy methods that he can use that will make it a lot safer. Considering Birth by Sleep isn't known for its intricate and well planned super bosses, I decided to use the safe route with Ventus. Our first stop is Lingering Vanitas, where we start by equipping 2 of a mood called Tornado, which will allow us to trap Vanitas in one attack for the entire fight. Unfortunately, in Birth by Sleep, when you change commands, they all get set to reload, so we're stuck waiting for a bit, which I decided to use as a little water break. The fight itself isn't much to talk about. We took one death because he fell out of the loop, as it's not the most consistent strategy, but we were able to pull it off on the second try, allowing for a quick completion and moved on to the Mirage Arena. When we arrive, we go ahead and load ourselves up with half a deck of Fire Surges and half of Cures. This won't be the main method for the upcoming fights, but the commands will still be helpful, and I'm gonna need them for Mysterious Figure later on anyways, so I just go ahead and handle it here. We start off with the Erika's armor fight, and the method is very simple. Anytime he is doing a light attack, we use Vin's Shotlock Multi-Vortex. He usually will avoid your shotlocks, but in these brief moments he can be hit by them, allowing for a very nice chunk of damage. No Heart is easily the more difficult of the two. The goal of using Multi-Vortex is the same, however No Heart moves around the arena at very high speeds and sends so many barrages of attacks at you that the chances to get a shotlock in are few and far in between. With enough patience, however, and a lot of infinite dodge iframes, we are able to finish him off, leaving just Mysterious Figure left. Easily the most nerve-wracking fight for me in this challenge coming up. You see, he's not an easy fight, another one of the toughest in the series, but absolutely for all the wrong reasons. This isn't a boss breakdown, so I won't get too deep into it, but I'll just let this clip speak for itself. I had to take a chance to try and heal. We have a really decent first attempt, but are unfortunately caught in an attack that when near the wall of the arena will ignore your once more ability and kill you anyway. We eventually take another 3 deaths before our winning attempt. The goal is basically just use surge attacks to do damage, rely on once more, second chance, and the infinite dodge iframes to survive, and of course heal whenever need be. It took long enough, but we were able to finish him off with a very risky surge while he was invisible. Yeah, don't try this at home, kids. My thumb was killing me from mashing the dodge button so much in this fight, and surely y'all's thumbs will too should you attempt this, but don't let that stop you guys from mashing the like and subscribe button as well. Liking and subscribing is a great way to help grow the channel and spread it to a wider audience, so don't forget to do so before the video ends. While you're at it, go ahead and comment what your toughest boss in the series is, and as always, I greatly appreciate all the support. With Birth by Sleep done, we switch discs to move on to Dream Drop Distance for another really tough fight for all the wrong reasons. But wait! I'm sure all you hardcore Kingdom Hearts fans are realizing I'm missing a certain game and certain boss from this challenge. In Kingdom Hearts Recoded, there is technically a secret boss where in the post-game you fight in a new system sector through 13 extremely difficult floors, where the final floor is a bugged Data Roxas fight. Yes, this is technically a super boss, but if you think I'm doing all that for this challenge, then you're drunker than Nomura was when he wrote that game. Hey guys, post-editing Scrax here. Thanks to a recent video by Skyward Wing, I now know that there's another, even more complicated, bugged Data Riku super boss in Recoded. I still don't care. So moving on to Dream Drop Distance, there is only one super boss, Julius. There are some other pretty difficult bosses in the post game, but considering they are just higher health versions of bosses from the main game, they don't really classify as secret bosses to most of the community, so it's just Julius here. Riku being my preferred character here due to his barrier guard and dark dodge, I decided to go with him. However, no matter who you choose to use, the fight is basically the same. He's very similar to Mysterious Figure where he's really difficult, but for all the wrong reasons. The main strategy is to just spam the Ballooner spell and be defensive when you need to be. We only end up taking 1 death this time, which for this boss is still really good, and finish the fight at just over an hour and a half now. We are on very good pace still, but I still need as much possible time for Kingdom Hearts 3. Before that, however, we have one more game to knock out, 0.2 Birth by Sleep, A Fragmentary Passage. This game also only has one secret boss, but if I'm being honest, it's one of my favorites in the series. After the main story, you can collect a total of 12 Zodiac pieces around the Dark Realm. This will unlock a new secret boss known as Zodiac Aqua. She is very similar to the Phantom Aqua from the main story, however all her moves have been reworked to be a much more difficult but very rewarding experience. Honestly, I always like to say this fight was the blueprint for all the data fights in Kingdom Hearts 3 with how well it was designed, and for such a small game at that. The only real downside to this fight is that you have to fight a few wave fights including a dark side and a demon tower before you can actually fight her. We die a couple times in those, sometimes on accident and sometimes on purpose to regain MP, but once we get to Aqua, things go somewhat smoothly. We do take one death after a very close fight, but we quickly recover and the second attempt goes pretty clean and we're able to finish her off with plenty of time to spare for Kingdom Hearts 3. Now, I have hyped up Kingdom Hearts 3 for very good reason. Even with over an hour left, I was still very nervous as to how things could end up, and for good reason, as you'll see here at the very end here. This is because Kingdom Hearts 3's secret bosses, not you, are altogether the toughest fights in the series and require me to play at my absolute best at all times. So Dark Inferno was first, but he's honestly a joke compared to the rest, especially with Ultimate Weapon. We get him down to his third phase very quickly, just over a minute even, and then to use the Ultimate Weapon Shotlock to finish him off. Much like Final Form Viraga, Ultimate Shotlock will come in very handy on these fights. After that, it's time for the real deal, the ultimate finale. Once we load in, we first make sure to eat some food for the best stats to help us out. We also equip Ultima, Oblivion, and Nano Gear for reasons I will go in more depth later. After that, our first stop is young Xehanort. The first round honestly was extremely smooth until the end. I still to this day struggle with the last stage of this fight, where at 1 HP he puts up armor. This sadly results in a death, but I used the moment to equip some healing items that I forgot about, and then crush it on the second try with the Ultima Form Cheese. Dark Riku was also a tad rough. I barely survived for most of the fight, but end up dying anyway due to a badly timed counter. As I said, these fights are no joke, and the deaths definitely begin to worry me as every death just puts me more in danger of losing this challenge. Regardless, I keep the persistence going and clean Riku up on the second try. Lucky for me, Saïx went much better. I had probably one of the cleanest fights yet, beating him on the first try and avoiding the DM. I hadn't even done that in practice yet, so this was a much needed morale boost. At this point, I switched to counter kick for two reasons. It will be the main counter that I will use for the rest of these fights, and honestly, it's the best counter. If you're sleeping on this, then just wake up, it's so good. However, counter kick definitely isn't the main utility for Loxine, as she was one of the fights that I had no worries of whatsoever. See, due to Loxine's clone ability, she has the advantage of numbers, but the drawback that every clone takes damage. This means that any AoE attack will damage every clone currently on the field, and if timed correctly will do massive damage to her health. So I decided to use the Ultimate Weapon Shotlock, and just take a look how useful it is in this fight. Yeah, definitely one of the easier fights due to this trick. But with that, old Ziggy is up next. I first get off as much damage as possible at the beginning in the changed arena. Once the real arena spawns, we only need 2 more combos before he's pushed to DM. Xigbark's DM is very tricky and can require some very precise timing, so I take my time to avoid any damage and make it through clean with no health loss. Once that's over, the rest of the fight is very simple, and I decide to use the showdown command for the final opening to finish him off.
You gotta be quicker than that.
Ansem is up next, and he's honestly one of my favorites. We do mess up an opening right at the beginning, but quickly recover and get some standing ground. We'll make it through the rest of the fight nice and smooth, and I decide to use Ultima Shotlock at the end so I can skip his final DM phase and save even more time. Now, we skip Xehanort as I like to do these in order from how you unlock them, but luckily Xemnas is my favorite fight anyway, so I'm very familiar with it here. We do have a pretty big scare during the DM, but by some miracle I'm able to recover and finish out the fight with another no-death attempt. Unfortunately for that streak, however, Luxid is up next. And no, I didn't die, but my sanity and patience does every time I try this fight. I don't mind most of the time gauge gimmicks in this fight, but the DM is absolutely atrocious and completely ruins pacing for these fights for me. Luckily, I know a few tricks to help out. The first one being that during the attack that he shuffles the cards on the ground and you have to find him, if you start gliding at the beginning, it's much easier to track him down. The other trick is the Nano Gear that I equipped earlier. This fight is based more off hits than damage, and Nano Gear's Shotlock takes off a lot more of the time gauge than Ultima's does. With that, we close out the fight so we can finally move back to the better ones. Marluxia is definitely a step up for 1-2, being another one of my favorites. We get good RNG on his choice of attacks to begin with, and get to use my first instance of the Oblivion Keyblade. Basically, the only reason I have this one equipped is the Shotlock melts armor. We'll see this again later for Xion, but the rest of the fight goes pretty standard. I did, however, attempt a cool trick with a well-timed fire in the final DM, but yeah, it was not well-timed. Luckily, that didn't cost me to fight. Water break. I don't really have that much to say about Terranort. He's pretty standard and nothing really crazy happened, but the only thing I will say is that I did use an Ultima Shotlock to skip the second DM. Other than that, this fight was pretty smooth and we knocked it out with plenty of time. Vanitas was another simple and clean one for the most part. I do mess up the DM skip, and considering I never practiced that DM, it was an easy death for me. Considering this was my first death in a bit though, I don't sweat it and I come back next round, getting the skip this time and cleaning house to move on to Xion. Now, here comes our big hurdle. Xion is an amazing fight and I absolutely love it, but I suck at her DM. Getting all the proper counters to whittle her armor down is a nightmare, and I already used the obliterated shot lock for an earlier armor stage, so I can't use it here. Solely this DM cost me a total of 4 deaths and losing me 10 minutes of time. I'm very lucky that I played well earlier in the challenge, because else this could have cost me the entire run. Once I pulled my butt together, I finally managed through her DM one time, and it's GG's from there, and time for the final data fight. Master Xehanort is another one that can be extremely tricky, and I would definitely consider him one of the hardest ones. Lucky for me, I practiced this fight a lot, as I knew it was one of my weakest. After one of my cleanest DM survivals, I'm able to finish him off first try, leaving us just 17 minutes for one final fight. Now, Yozora is in my opinion the toughest, and my favorite, fight in the series. Many people struggle for hours on him on even the easier difficulties. I could easily lose all my time at the end here, as he is absolutely no joke and a force to be reckoned with when it comes to bosses in gaming in general. But he forgot one thing. I'm that guy.
They must have amnesia. They forgot that I'm him.
With that said, this challenge of every single super boss in the Kingdom Hearts series in under 3 hours is a challenge complete. I had so much fun attempting this challenge, and honestly, if any of you hardcore Kingdom Hearts fans are feeling up for the challenge, I highly recommend it, as it feels so accomplishing to complete. That being said though, this is where the video ends, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate it if you made it all the way to the end, and if you have, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as that really does help out so much. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you later in the next video. Get jiggy and stay awesome.